right, welcome to Two Sons Podcast. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We have the Acolyte episode 6, also known as the classic Disney tease episode.
Yeah,
which we've seen plenty of.
We got teased. Yeah. I'm okay with it. I really am.
A couple little drops.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some development, and that's okay. We discussed that. It just makes the next episode that much better, right?
I think part of this is the byproduct too of doing 30-minute episodes.
Right.
Like
there's only so much you can do, right?
Yeah. And like I think we got to start again. Like I said the same thing when we talked yesterday about kind of like them filming in these egg studios,
right?
In the sense that like everyone needs to adjust their expectations. Like every single Disney show since they started making The Mandalorian for Star Wars has had this kind of vibe, like short episodes, multiple filler episodes in each season.
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
Do you remember the like? You know what it reminded me of? Remember the episode where in Ahsoka season 1 where they had the first 2 episodes, which like it like ended when Sabine loses the little wayfinder thing for the Dathomirian star map for the Peridia.
Oh, right.
When it ended there, you're like, oh my gosh, new season, this is great. And then it's like episode 3 was like they traverse to the next planet, and there's a brief space altercation, and like that's it.
Literally in contrast to what we're seeing with House of the Dragon, where like you see 3 episodes smushed into one, and so much happens. Yeah,
every episode of House of the Dragon feels like a movie.
Right.
Like they're all
like 2 movies
over
almost.
60-minute run times.
Right.
Like this last week, House of the Dragon was a relatively slow episode, and still quite a bit happened.
Oh yeah, a lot happened still. Yeah, this was definitely a teaser episode though, and overall it makes sense. I'm cool with it. These are short episodes though.
The pattern of this episode followed the same kind of structure that we talked about in the pod we recorded yesterday, which was like at this point the Sith is going to start trying to corrupt Osha. That was predictable. And then we knew that May was Soul's path to recover. So like it actually makes some sense. Like I think I want to get it. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to get into because Soul's going down a little bit of a dark path himself.
Soul's struggling.
Yeah.
Which is expected.
Yeah.
I mean, he just lost how many of his little buddies?
The whole team?
That would be really rough. Like I feel like because we were watching with our wives and there was like a lot going on, right? Like G is crying in the background. Like, my dog Lola is demanding pets. Like we're with our wives, and of course,
our wives have questions.
Yeah, our wives have questions. Jason and I are just joking around about stupid stuff, and then like I really don't think I gave the episode a chance in regards to just paying attention to what Soul would be going through. Like obviously, I was paying a lot of attention, right? But when I rewatch that, I think I'm going to try and put myself in Soul's shoes a little bit more, just because like he really would be going through it, and obviously he was, and the actor who portrays Soul like does a fabulous job.
To put it simply, there's no way that he would ignore the Jedi strike team on their inbound path.
Yes,
unless he was about to do some stuff that he was a little bit uncomfortable with. I want to start with the Sith though. The couple things. First of all, as we discussed yesterday, I am convinced this is a Sith Lord, like an actual full-blown, true, like Dark Lord.
Not
of the
an
Sith.
apprentice.
Not an apprentice.
Yeah, that seems pretty clear at this point.
The easy giveaways were has the power to literally cut down a dozen Jedi. The tilting of the balance that Vernestra talked about. Another big one for me was the use of the Sith code. Like everyone's like, oh, what if it's the Knights of Ren, or what if it's this? And it's like, why is he straight up like reciting the Sith code with his apprentice if it's not a Sith? You know what I mean? But I thought there was actually another big giveaway today. They dropped a video of the Sith Lord guy training. And it actually says, the caption says, train like a Sith. And it shows him like training for those scenes. And like, I think that I like Disney's not trying to hide the fact that this is a Sith. So like, I'm kind of convinced about that.
I fully believe that this is Sith.
However, I don't know if you picked up if you're kind of in the same spot. I mean, we kind of exchanged a quick barb about it during the show, but like him saying that he was a Jedi a long time ago, and then Osha being like, oh yeah, like why don't I recognize you? And him being like,
it was a really
very long time ago.
Yeah,
that to me is a really, really strong hint at Darth Plagueis.
Darth Plagueis
that
the
is
Wise.
A pretty significant hint in that direction. Were you kind of thinking the same way?
Yeah, it makes sense. The other thing too that we were talking about is how he presumably, I still think he did, healed Osha. and Darth Plagueis the Wise has the ability
Episode
to...
opens with an actual bandage over her bloody down the side.
Hey, read the comments, bro. Everyone thinks he healed her too. Okay?
I'm against the comments. I don't think he healed her.
But one of the most classic Star Wars comments is he had the ability to save others, but not himself.
Yes.
And that would go with that. Also, we had an outstanding comment, by the way, about the Sith healing in like Sith lore. I don't know if you read it or not yet. I'll show you after the pod. There was example after example after example that this one.
The Plagueis one's a great one.
Yeah, well, but then there's a lot of examples actually where the Sith actually have healed and had the ability to do so. So it's a good read. Like, yeah, I'll point it out to you.
There are some intricacies that Plagueis dived into that Sith Lords in general did not. Now, the gist of where we come up with the assumption that it's Plagueis is very simple. Like, the Plagueis was essentially like aging backwards by the end of the Plagueis book. Now, a couple things. Like, this is where we have to kind of like refocus here, because one of the other things from the Darth Plagueis book, which you are rereading right now, I reread just about a month ago. Plagueis specifically tells Palpatine, and I think it was surrounding a conversation around Dooku, when they were kind of like having their conversations about whether or not Dooku could kind of serve the Sith purposes. And he basically said that like a Jedi could never be a true Sith Lord. And essentially, like, he had this rant with Palpatine where he talked about like any fallen Jedi can like dabble in the dark side, but only a Sith has to be like it's just they're usually trained from an older age rather than a younger age. They're usually people that have been through some shit.
Yeah, after like they've been tainted a little bit. Hard knocks of life.
Exactly. But I don't remember the exact full context of the conversation.
Yeah, I can't remember that.
But Plagueis does specifically tell Palpatine, like, Jedi cannot be Sith.
And let me just beat everybody in the comments, Anakin Skywalker, right?
No, exactly. And that's kind of one of the things I was thinking about earlier today as it pertains to like some of the criticisms of Disney and what they've done with Star Wars canon. You know what else fucked with Star Wars canon? Star Wars canon before Disney before Disney was involved. You know, like, they had some stuff that didn't make a ton of sense. They had some stuff that like was a little bit out there in the plot and the Legends universe, right?
There is going to be, if this is Plagueis, there is going to be a little Star Wars part of me that dies a little bit.
So I'm with you too. Darth Plagueis was my favorite book ever. It's just my favorite book. I'm a fiction guy. I love reading Star Wars books. That's my favorite one. Yeah. So rip it up and throw it in the shredder if that's Darth Plagueis.
That's rough.
And that's definitely tough.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
However, the way I'm trying to, like, what I appreciate is like Qimir himself has a vibe, has an energy that is kind of unique. And one of my long-standing theories with this kind of stuff is like, and I've talked to you about this a bunch in our old pods, but like, I'm a big believer in you don't need to tread new ground in the kind of like universe of what the lore is. You just need to tell a new story. So for instance, House of the Dragon. You never actually watched Game of Thrones. You only saw season 1, but you're watching House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon has like a bunch of different characters and like different dynamics taking place. And obviously there's more dragons than there were in Game of Thrones, although Game of Thrones also had dragons. But House of the Dragon is still the same core concept. Right. People are jockeying for the throne. Right. And there are people who are honorable and obey their oaths and are, will just, do the right thing every time. And then there are these like truly evil people that will kill, backstab, do anything in the world to get to the throne. Right. Right. The House of the Dragon is the same kind of like lineup. And so I've said that a bunch to you about Star Wars. Like, I want Star Wars to me, the core principle of Star Wars is darkness versus light. Right. It is the Sith versus the Jedi. It is quintessential to what makes Star Wars Star Wars. There's like a moral battlefield there that's taking place. And it almost feels like everything else is happening in the background of the larger conflict of the Sith and the Jedi. With that being the case, like all you have to do is just change the characters around, change the time frame, and then tell a new story, and it works. And so my angle on this is like, I'm surprisingly okay with it at this exact moment in time. I'm throwing Plagueis out. The only baseline foundational piece that I'm working with Plagueis is the conversation that Palpatine had with Anakin, which is simply put, He was so strong in the dark side of the Force that he had the power to manipulate midichlorians to create life.
Right.
And then it specifically uses the word create, and then the power to save others but not himself. Like that, I'm trying to just use that as a baseline, and I'm trying to just take my hands off here and be like, Leslie Headland, tell me a new story.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's where I'm at too. Like, of course, like there's a part of you that dies just because you and I love the Plagueis books so much. But at the end of the day, that is Legends. And that's just the way it is, right? And for whatever it's worth, I'm really enjoying Qimir a lot. Like, I love his vibe. I love his helmet. Like, at the end of the episode, we got to see May put on his helmet, which I thought was totally awesome. And she puts it on, right? And she sees nothing. Like, she cannot see anything, which just shows you how powerful Qimir is and how well he uses the Force. And I love the idea of a deprivation helmet where, like, it forces him to use the Force in ways that maybe other people aren't. Like, he's literally fighting blind. Like, all of that is just so cool. It's so cool.
I'm all in on it. I was actually thinking as May put it on, or Osha put it on, I was like, she's touching Darth Plagueis' helmet. Like, this is like a incredibly powerful Sith relic that she has her hands on. Like, and they were like hinting, like, as she was breathing, like something was going to happen. I actually said to you on the couch, I'm like, something badass is about to happen any second now, but it ended up kind of ending the episode. It's like, oh, tease.
It was kind of funny because they teased us twice. Did you pick up on that? I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was when Soul essentially sat May down and was like, hey, we're going to talk. And then the episode looks like it ends. And then it's like a prolonged dark screen for like a good maybe 1 second or so. And I thought that was going to be the end of the episode. And then it showed the helmet again. And then it teased us twice, right?
So I'm going to give you, are you ready to hear my insane theory?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay.
I feel like it's not going to be that insane.
I think Elzar Mann might be Darth Plagueis.
Oh, that's pretty insane.
So hear me out.
Wait, isn't he blonde?
This is my harebrained theory.
Does that even make sense?
Just hear me out.
I think
Can I say the theory? Okay.
I think this is crazy.
If you haven't listened to the High Republic books or read them, this will sound a little bit convoluted.
Oh, I can kind of get down for this. I know where
Elzar
you're
Mann
going.
was a Jedi in the High Republic. I think at least 100. It's like 150 years before this incident, right? And they've gone through 5 books now. No, they're on the 7th book, but 5 books that have involved Elzar Mann. And he has consistently towed the line of the dark side. At the Republic Fair, he launched one of those giant platforms with the power of the dark side with an unprecedented amount of power that freaked everybody out. Yeah. At the Starlight Beacon, he cut down that. I'm
looking at what Elzar Mann looks like per High Republic stuff.
Just hear me out.
Okay.
Hear me out. All right. If it basically he like flirted with the dark side a bunch, but what if he ends up turning to the dark side in the books? Vernestra Rwoh knows him. Vernestra Rwoh's been around a really long time.
Yeah.
So that would lead to some kind of dope confrontation at the end of the show where Vernestra and Elzar Mann / Darth Plagueis kind of like face off with each other. Again, this is a huge long shot theory, but we know that he's a former Jedi.
Right.
We know Vernestra Rwoh is hundreds of years old.
Uh-huh.
She's one of the few people who might be able to recognize him.
So, per the picture that I just looked at, so I love what you're putting down.
Are you about to drop Elzar Mann's a white guy?
Yep.
We're cutting in here because I have another point I need to make. So, Luke has pointed out the obvious fact that my harebrained long shot theory that Elzar Mann might be Qimir / the Stranger / maybe Darth Plagueis. He has been pointing out the obvious fact that in the High Republic artwork that has come out that Elzar Mann is just a very white dude. He's just a white dude, right? Okay. And obviously Manny Jacinto is not. So like this is a completely fair point. This is my counterpoint though. Do you think that Disney would just have a bunch of drawings of Manny Jacinto on the cover?
Way too obvious. Like, you're totally right.
Like it wouldn't be that clear.
Agreed. And for whatever it's worth too, all the artwork that we're seeing, because Jason and I just did a deep dive into this.
we looked at many pictures of Elzar Mann.
There's really nothing consistent that we're finding. So it's all over the map right now.
Yeah, it's all over the map. Here's all I'm going to say, okay? Like, I thought of this theory during the show. I thought it was worth putting out there. You're right. Not rock solid.
Yeah.
Some clear gaping holes, but I did just want to cut in with that simple point. Like, they wouldn't make it that obvious if they were trying to set it up. So I'm keeping just my harebrained theory. I'm leaving the door cracked on it. Okay. Deal?
No,
All
I'm,
right.
I'm totally down.
All right.
And for whatever it's worth, if it wasn't Elzar, I think it's a huge missed opportunity. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, because that would be really cool, right? Like, why not use the books to tell the story?
Exactly. It's like a perfect lead up.
Anyway, all right, we can get back to the show.
So I literally, what you're saying makes so much sense, and I think it's almost so good that like Disney, I think, is gonna
incapable.
Miss it.
They're incapable of it.
Yeah, I honestly think it. Like,
do you remember how
per the picture I just saw, they look pretty different.
Yes, I do think that the art for the books is a little bit different.
True.
Potentially,
I feel you on that.
So, and here's the other piece of it. One of the big things that the High Republic kind of focuses on is that these Force users have like a unique relationship with the Force. And Avar Kriss experiences the Force as a song. Guess how Elzar Mann perceives the Force? As the ocean waves, as
he's
the
surrounded
power
by
of
the
water.
ocean.
And this is where
Dude,
he chose to live.
all of this is great. Yeah, no, all of it. If that was the case, I'd be so down. And I don't know if that was fan art that it just looked like. But
no, that's the cover of the book. I've seen it.
Okay.
If you look at the cover of the Temptation of the Force book, which is the one I just started reading, it's Elzar and Avar, and Elzar has he's a white guy.
Yeah, he's a white dude. He kind of looks like he's like Scottish of sorts.
Yeah,
maybe.
he's
like very very white.
Very run of the mill white.
Yeah,
dude.
pretty average.
So yeah, there's that. Anyway, that's my crazy theory.
Dude,
but
I love that. That's cool.
But to put it more simply, though, I think that a former Jedi lining up with Vernestra's age kind of like makes some sense for them to have some sort of confrontation.
I totally agree, and that would just be an awesome shoe to drop at the very end of what would be a crazy season.
Also, the Jedi would have more reason to want to bury that.
True.
If it was one of theirs, that
might be a
Dark
good
Lord
excuse. Yeah, that might be a good excuse for them to try and bury that. The big question now, though, is who trained Qimir, right? Like,
yes,
because I look at the Sith lineage as unbroken from Bane's era until present, right? So that might just be a story that we just don't get anytime recently. I would be super disappointed if it was like, oh yeah, Plagueis learned from a holocron or something like that. Like that would suck. That would suck. I would not love that.
I don't think that's going to be the case. I thought they pretty strongly hinted at the fact that the scar on his back was from his Sith master.
Agreed.
Like I interpreted.
I interpreted it as it was from the Jedi.
Oh no! Like
let him down.
He looked at her, and then she was like, "Your Jedi master," and he was like he kind of just was like blank about it. I think that was a Sith master that did that, and I think like it makes some sense in the idea that like okay, he freed himself from his master by overthrowing him the way the Sith do. But he's immortal at this point, so like he's aging backwards. He's a Jedi very long time ago, but he looks like he's 32, 33 years old or whatever.
Incredibly ripped.
And just jacked.
And
like
great physique.
Elzar Mann, not jacked, so this doesn't make any sense. I'm just kidding. But like there's like a certain element of like I think that like he has come to terms with the fact that he needs a second as a partner in this.
Well,
and one of the reasons, go ahead.
It seemed very like sensual almost. Like there was multiple times when
I did not pick up on that at all.
You didn't. So when Osha has the lightsaber drawn on his neck, right? He like tenderly touches her forearm. All right, we'll see, everybody. We'll see. To me, it seemed a little.
You think Qimir's making moves on May?
I think
or on Osha.
Either he is trying to make moves on Osha, or he's trying to manipulate her a little bit.
I think he's trying to manipulate her, but I don't think there's a.
Dude, he got naked in front of her for no reason.
He went swimming.
Yeah, he could have done a lot of things.
He's Elzar Mann. He loves the ocean. I am very, very opposed to you on this
Okay,
thing.
we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I think you've been watching too much House of the Dragon.
You might be right.
So
you might be right.
I'm interested in them fleshing that out more. But like that was one of the frustrating things of this episode. It was like there was all of this conversation, but it very much was philosophical about the Force and not a whole lot on like who are you and what are you doing and like and that was what kind of made this episode frustrating to watch as a fan.
Right.
But like in general, I'm just again I'm hands off. I'm letting Leslie Headland tell her story. It makes some sense to me too that like if Dave Filoni got involved in storyboarding and he believes in a finish line, he could have gone to the storybook group and been like, okay, so we have this Sith Lord. This Sith Lord we're going to use Plagueis. Okay. We're recasting him as a man, and a human instead of immune. We need to kind of flush out his entire story. How about we have him be a fallen Jedi instead of to make it something unique? Okay, well, why don't we go way into the past and we tell the story of this other conflict that actually leads to him leaving the Order and turning to the dark side? We could figure that out. And like, by the way, I'm pointing Elzar Mann out there because I'm reading the High Republic right now, and
you literally called it a long shot. Like,
yeah, it's a long shot.
Yeah, like if anybody really holds you to this, then
well, it'd be cool too. It'd be cool too, just from the standpoint of Vernestra, like in them having like some sort of because like Vernestra and Elzar are basically both operating as knights in the Order during the Masters in the Order during the Starlight Beacon Crisis in the Nile. But anyway, one of the things that I think would be cool too is like, let's say this is Darth Plagueis and they have some sort of resolution at the end of the scene. Like you've got a young actor there to work with.
True.
And we've seen recasting work in Star Wars, particularly with like Han Solo, for instance. So like, what if they just recasted a young Palpatine and they fast forwarded and then they did a show centered around Qimir and Palpatine and like them like raising him,
politics
and Naboo and all that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff that they could do with this. And like this is the kind of thing that I think is great, because what it is it's the biggest and most important thing happening in Star Wars, which is not The Mandalorian, which is not Boba Fett, which is not like, even when you're watching Ahsoka, you're like, none of this matters because Palpatine's out in Exegol with 1,000 Star Destroyers that all are Death Stars.
Yeah.
You know, so like this to me is like new Star Wars that has the weight of the old Star Wars, because it's the most important thing happening in the universe at that time.
And I'm down for that. And again, like I'm totally enjoying this story. Like and so much so that the book that you and I love, we're okay with it being almost like a relic. Hate to say it, but like it kind of is turning into a relic slowly. Like, you know, and again though, it is Legends, and that's what we have to take it for, right?
No, it is what it is. Like I'm surprisingly okay with it.
Yeah.
Like there were some people in the comments talking about Qimir being Plagueis, and like I didn't know if that was just people pontificating or if like they had read leaks or whatever. But like I'd already kind of started to mentally prepare myself for that.
Yeah,
makes some sense too. Like it's just really difficult to like have Immune
be
live action.
Yeah, that was one of the comments. Like how would you manipulate Immune talking and stuff and making it look good? Like that would be really difficult.
The hard part is like Darth Plagueis in the book as Immune was one of the greatest financiers in the galaxy, and that was kind of an important element to like how he manipulated things, but that could be worked around by just him having Immune under his thumb that he manipulates in all of these situations.
Oh,
and so I think they can work it out, but like I think the Sith Grand Plan is one of the coolest and most well executed story pieces in like the history of cinema.
Agreed.
And it comes together beautifully in Revenge of the Sith at the end of that movie, and like doing a prequel where they lay all that out works in the same way that the prequel trilogy worked to set up the actual original Star Wars trilogy. And I just would be really down for them to kind of like continue to flesh out that character.
I have a take on Qimir and how he's treated the sisters, because it seems like he's being very gentle with Osha, and obviously he's trying to manipulate her, right? But in contrast, May was so fearful of him. And it seems that he's completely playing his cards in a different way with the twins. What do you think about that?
I think so too. But I mean, he straight up said that. He's like, I made a mistake with May. But I think he meant more what he was talking about when he picked her. And I want to get to that in a minute. But like specifically with Osha too, like Osha has a different attitude than May, in the sense that like May is all anger and like just pent up energy, and she just wants revenge. And like Osha is like weirdly righteous at this point, in the sense that like she carries a great deal of loyalty towards the Jedi,
right,
even though there's no real reason for that. And like obviously Qimir tries to pick at that a little bit with some of his words, but I do agree that he's taking a very gentle approach to Osha. But at the same time, like I kind of appreciate that, in the sense that like if you were a Sith and you were going to expose yourself to a young impressionable person,
literally
Jesus, Luke. If you were going to expose yourself as a Sith to a potential apprentice, you would do it in a gentle way to kind of like ease into it.
That's
you
kind of what
I mean?
Palpatine did with Anakin.
Yeah, and
he like
and
slowly
that's what Plagueis did with
sowed
Palpatine.
seeds. Yep. Yeah. So it makes sense.
And one of the things too, if you remember the initial conversations that that Palpatine and Anakin had, it was like from a certain point of view is what Palpatine says
It's all
when he
semantics.
talks about good. It's like this battle of like, well, right and wrong are kind of like what the Jedi tell you is right and wrong. It's like the same thing with Plagueis and Palpatine. Like Palpatine, Plagueis actually says to Palpatine says to Plagueis, like, aren't the Sith evil? When they're sitting down, and obviously at this point, Palpatine is some like 13-year-old boy who just murdered his family, right? and Plagueis like says to him, like he like literally laughs. Their warriors are making a trade, but it's not big enough for me to work. So that's good. Anyway, it's one of those things where Palpatine or Plagueis actually like kind of laughs and goes like, "What does that even mean?" I can't remember the exact words he used, but he all the Sith kind of like start by just confronting like the basic issue of morality, which is like. That and again, we're not talking about that in the real world. We're talking about in the Star Wars world.
Right.
Like, it makes sense in terms of his manipulations to be like, I am not actually evil. I'm just a person with a different interpretation of the Force.
Right.
Like, and if you kind of focus on that, you might be able to kind of ensnare somebody in your web, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's always like an underlying theme of the Sith. Like when Plagueis is teaching Palpatine about the Sith ways that's what he was talking about. He was like, yeah, there might be millions of lives that get lost for our cause, but overall we're like ridding the galaxy of weakness essentially, which and then they spin it into like, oh, we're doing some righteous thing and everyone should thank us for this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all very interesting, but you understand their take. You really do.
There's a line from Plagueis to Palpatine to Plagueis when Palpatine kind of conceptualizes the idea of Order 66, where he says like the Jedi must be viewed as the enemies of peace and justice in the Republic, not the protectors. And then there's a really cool moment where Plagueis is like, say that again,
right?
You know, and then they like kind of start to put together a plan, because originally like Plagueis wanted to use the cloners on Kamino to create an army to fight against the Jedi.
Right.
But then he was like, no. What if we could ensnare them in a war where they are fighting alongside the Jedi? And like that was kind of where things turned. But again, like it's all about the narrative and controlling the narrative. And Palpatine, after he becomes the Emperor, does an amazing job controlling the narrative. We see that in Bad Batch. We see that in Rebels. Like it's a consistent thing. Like it's like, I'm this sweet old man who just was attacked by the Jedi. You know?
They talk about giving each Jedi their own personal assassin, which are the clones.
Yeah.
Which is such a cool way to think of the clones. But you know, now that we're talking about it, it made so much sense in the Plagueis book.
Yeah,
how they could finance all of that on Kamino, and at this time in Star Wars, the Kaminoans need to be working, essentially. So like how Star Wars,
not necessarily, it's 100 years.
100, okay, yeah. And about then what, 50 years out?
I think
70 years from now or something like that. Yeah, so actually we do have some time. You're right.
I think 20 years before the Phantom Menace in the Plagueis book is when Plagueis asks the Kaminoans to update their cloning facilities because they aren't up to par.
I see.
And then 10 years before, I think they actually place the order during the Phantom, like during that same time period, because then they grow over the course of the 10
that's
years.
a good point. So we do have some time. We actually have a few decades to play with there. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Dude, that's why we do the show live, Jay.
Exactly. We just work through it. So the conversation between Qimir and Osha surrounding why May was the wrong choice, I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
So what I thought about, so basically what he says to Osha is like, I made a mistake with your sister because I thought she wanted more than just revenge. I thought she wanted what I want, but she actually just wanted revenge. And he didn't actually kind of elaborate on that yet, and I'm hoping that he will.
Well, and that does kind of explain why all of a sudden May would just switch sides, because she's like, oh, my sister's not dead.
Yeah,
and then she's like, oh, maybe the Jedi aren't that bad.
Yeah. And I don't even know what May's whole thing is, because then she like tried to kill Sol, but then like backed out, and then she was like going to use the comm to like ask for help. Like none of that makes any sense to me.
Some people said that might just be bad writing, and it could be. It very well could be. Yeah.
I'm not really. I'm trying to keep an open mind.
Like, what was her like side. Again? And like the big question is, what was May's end game? Okay, so she gets on a ship with Sol. Now what?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and we talked about that yesterday. Like, what are you going to do? Go back to the Sith? He wants to kill you.
Right.
You know, like it didn't make any sense.
Especially when you leave your sister. Like you left your sister. So again, yeah, I'm kind of confused on that for sure.
The interesting thing that I thought about when I heard that line from Qimir was in the third Bane book when Darth Zana meets the Dark Jedi who's fallen and is like chasing Sith trinkets. His name was Set Hearth, I think.
Yeah.
So, like, essentially it's this really funny scene where Set is on Nal Hutta partying and he like comes home in the middle of the night and like falls down on his couch with like a bottle of wine and like fakes that he's asleep and he senses a presence in his house. But like Xana like is in the house, Darth Zana, who's the apprentice of Darth Bane at this point, and she like jumps down from the rafters and lands behind the couch, and then he like kind of like plays it cool and is like, oh, like, did you follow me home or something like that? And then like he sneak attacks her, and then she like completely obliterates him, like just like toys with him. Like she specifically says like, I need to humiliate him so bad that he realizes I have something to teach him. And so she humiliates him badly. Then at the last minute, she gives him Sith sorcery. So he like descends into madness and he barely crawls out of it like days later.
Yeah, that was his test.
Yeah,
if he could crawl out of it, then he was worthy.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they start talking, and essentially like Xana picks up pretty quickly like, he might be agreeing to be my apprentice just because he knows I'll kill him if he says no.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she talks about, and it's really the whole premise of the book, because Bane's mad at Xana for not challenging him either, but like a quintessential trait of a Sith Lord is ambition.
True.
They have to want it all. If you don't, like the Dark Jedi, they typically just use their power for wealth and personal, just in very selfish ways.
Right.
And they really don't care. That's what Set Hearth is. Set Hearth is like your textbook Dark Jedi, so to speak. But then like the Sith are supposed to have a certain amount of ambition. Like, and essentially what Qimir is saying is like, May wanted to kill these other 4 Jedi, but she clearly had no interest in the type of galactic ambition that Darth Plagueis / Qimir has.
Right. Yeah. What a Sith would want.
Yeah. What an actual Sith would want.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's talk about the Force Whip. Yeah.
Let's talk about Soul and his kind of weird behavior first, and then we'll get to some of the details. Yeah. So, what do you think Soul is having some sort of run-in with the dark side? Like, what do you think's going on with him?
I don't know. Soul is kind of like Qui-Gon a little bit. He almost comes off as like a little bit gray sometimes in the fact that he still clings to attachments, not like your typical Jedi, and he is so invested in the twins. Like, and he's truly messed up about what happened with the whole entire Stonefire thing. And I think that he almost doesn't want the Jedi Order to meddle in his ability to try and essentially solve this case, right? And I think that's what he's going through. Also, he's very uneasy about letting every single one of his fellow Jedi Knights down. Like he like literally everyone that he was supposed to be taking care of died.
He's definitely shook by that.
And he's super off balance, and I don't think he's thinking clearly.
It's also abundantly clear that he only told Vernestra about what happened at this temple. Right. Because he has this moment where he's like, I need to go to the High Council and I need to tell them everything. And obviously there's still a lot that needs to be told, which I don't know when they're going to tell that. I don't know, like hopefully in episode 7, but we only got 2 episodes left of this thing. But they're going to have to get into those details. But I think the secret of what happened that day is haunting him. I think what happened to all these Jedi is haunting him. I think his personal relationship with Osha and his desire to rescue her is haunting him.
Yep.
I think he views May as kind of like the best way for him to get to Osha.
Totally agree.
And I think part of it is he worries if the Jedi get involved, it'll be more complicated and time consuming.
And they'll probably pull him out.
Yeah.
There's no way that Ro would be like, all right, you're doing a great job with this one. Continue to do what you're doing.
Yeah. Vernestra's just like, you look good. You look like you're stout and ready to go. Like,
you look very on top of this.
You look emotionally prepared for another confrontation with Osha and the Sith Lord. Like, you look ready.
Dude, that's probably exactly what's happening. Yeah. Again, I'm glad we talked through that because like it makes so much more sense that Soul is trying to do this on his own now. If you really think about it, it really does. Because from day one, he was begging Osha to go with him because that was going to be the only way that he was allowed to go and try and save May or find May. Right? He's like, if you come with me, they're going to let me they're going to let me go on this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to.
So I think that I don't think he's going to turn to the dark side.
No,
but
I
do think
I
do think he's struggling a little bit with some of those emotions. And by the way, like that, to your point, that's why I think that's why Vernestra was like, hey,
right,
you probably shouldn't do this.
Well, and he keeps like over and over showing true anger.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, like actual,
he's pissed.
Yeah.
And sad. He's pissed and sad.
He's pissed and sad and has regrets and all.
Early tenets of going to the dark side.
Exactly. Oh, quick note before we move on to some of the smaller details. There looked like a cortosis vein in that cave.
I think that's exactly what it was.
You know what would be really interesting there too is I joked about this during the show, but what if that was Baldemnik, the name of the planet?
Sick.
That would be really, really cool. It'd be like a small touch. But then again, like Disney has this habit of like, actually this famous old planet from Legends, it's called
Small
something
Nemnik.
Small Nemnik. It's like
Kornemnik.
Korriban is a really cool Sith word name. Let's just change it for no damn reason. Like that is a little. I wish they would kind of just maintain some of those callbacks. I don't know why they feel
there's no need to
do
change
that.
it. No, I do think that was a vein of cortosis. I think I don't know what else it would be. It had the same
think that
hue.
was implied.
Yeah, it had the same hue as his helmet.
And like that was where his workstation was, so it makes some sense. And he might like melt some, and then
dude,
like,
the guy needs to get some welding goggles.
Yeah, he needs to.
Like, what is he
take
doing?
better care of his eyes. Like, or just use the dark side.
Yeah. He fixes
it. Really quickly, Baldemnik was just the planet at the beginning of the Darth Plagueis book where Darth Tenebrous and Darth Plagueis find cortosis, and it's by the ocean, like. After Darth Plagueis kills his master there, he like runs along the coastline.
Right.
Like that's kind of like part of the book, right? That would just be like a subtle little shout out to Legend. So Vernestra Rwoh and her lightsaber whip.
Yeah, dude, it's just cool to see a lightsaber. Like that's all I've got on that.
It was longer than I was expecting.
Yeah, dude, she's got a great whip.
Yeah, she's got great range with that whip. But people who don't remember, if you read the High Republic books, Vernestra Rwoh was literally like a Jedi prodigy. She was a hotshot. She trained under Stellan Gios, who, by the way, was best friends with Elzar Mann.
Yeah, true.
So that's kind of like why how there's some connections there. But also, guess how Stellan died? He died on Starlight Beacon because Elzar Mann fucked up and killed the girl that was
That's true. That was going to help them.
Yeah, that was going to help them.
Right.
So there's like a little bit of a connection there between Vernestra and Elzar, which would be fun. I'm actually convinced now that I've totally forgot about all the face art, so it's stupid. But like, it just my brain was like putting it together as I was sitting there. I was like, that would be really cool because it would just be very unlike Disney to have that level of like depth in their storytelling.
No, I know it'd be way too in depth.
Yeah, like it'd be like the biggest accident. In the
they'd
world.
mess it up somehow, but maybe they mess it up in the fact that like Elzar was super white, and now he's not.
In illustrations, technically, yes.
Well, I wonder if we could find, because they always depict humans as either being like darker toned or lighter toned, and then they talk about the hair too. So it's never like an ethnicity. I feel like when they talk about humans,
they don't talk ethnicity
because it wouldn't make any sense. Like there's no like the globe doesn't exist.
The globe doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah, the regions that.
So
we have
I wonder
exist,
if they even mention like his physical characteristics. That would be something to look into.
Yeah, you're right. Like they mentioned, they'll mention like vague stuff about complexion and like hair color and like beard and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's just something that I would like think about in the sense that like it's very clear that Elzar's story in the books is he's flirting with the dark side a lot. And he also is like really like freaked out by it. Like you can tell he's freaked out by it.
Yeah,
like,
he gets completely broken.
Yeah, and like
over and over again.
Yeah, he's just like he feels like I'm in the middle of the book and they're going on some mission right now, and like I just literally think as I'm reading the book, I'm like, this is gonna go south, and Elzar is gonna be part of the reason why.
Yeah,
and like in the Eye of Darkness, like there's the storm wall that's like blocking the transition across the galaxy. And like, yeah, exactly. But like he grabs like a fleet of ships and is like, hey, like
crashes them into
the storm wall and everyone dies.
And he's like super depressed
and
about
his lack
it.
of patience and his want for revenge and his want to get back at the Nile was what like led to all these people dying. It's like, it's clearly something they're hinting at, but like, again, it could be anybody. Yeah. I just think it would be like a cool kind of tie back, especially with Vernestra and some of that kind of stuff.
It would have been great. Yeah.
Let's go through your smaller notes. So Unknown Planet, again, My guess is Baldemnik, but who knows? Like you said, Small Demnik or some different name.
Yeah.
What about?
Really,
What did you have
that's it.
about Kofar?
No, that was it. It was mainly just a note. So really, we went through it all.
Yeah, we did. We got through it all.
Mog. We got introduced to a Mog Jedi. It was the guy.
Mog is the name, isn't it?
Mog is his name.
Yeah, that's the guy who was like Vernestra's like kind of right hand man.
Yeah. Like they keep portraying Jedi as like very like meek, you know, which is kind of weird.
So
to me.
I did think it was kind of cool when Vernestra's like, "What do you think happened here?" And then like he would like just had it. He's like a very powerful warrior.
True, he could pick that up.
There was an explosion here, and then he cut everyone down here.
Right.
And blah, 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 blah. I like Vernestra's on it though, man. Like Vernestra, like you can tell, like she just can feel something's off.
Yeah.
And like I'm really, really curious to see how they bring her into the storyline at the end.
And if she survives.
Yeah, and if she survives, exactly.
I feel like there's a good chance she does not.
We will see. We're gonna find out. I mean, I think she's a Mirialan or something like that, and like they do live a very long time, so there's no reason why she should be dead in the Phantom Menace unless something like this were to happen.
Yep.
All right, guys, that is all we have for tonight. As always, we sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting the show. We're going to be back most likely on Sunday or Monday night with House of the Dragon, episode 4. We will see you guys then.
Thanks a lot.